Welcome to Master Math. Here's a couple of tips that'll help you get the most out of this lesson. First of all, you can watch it 3, 4, 5 times if you need. Secondly, if you go through a section and don't understand what we're talking about, hit your back button and review that section again. Next, when you come to a You Try It slide, hit your pause button, pull out some paper and pencil, do the problem yourself, and then hit the forward key to move on to my answer. Well, I hope you learn a little bit of math today and have a good time. This is a picture of astronaut John Young and the Apollo 16 lunar landing in 1972. And the astronauts walking on the surface of the moon. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? Well, it'd be even more amazing if he was walking on the inside of the moon. You can't walk on the inside of the moon. You can only walk on the surface. The surface is the outside or the exterior of a shape. Well, the moon's a three-dimensional figure and it has a surface. And every three-dimensional figure has a surface. A basketball has a surface. A box has a surface. Your computer has a surface. And it's not the inside of the shape, it's the outside of the shape. We measure the inside of the shape with volume, and we measure the outside of the shape with surface area. Now, before we get into how we do that, there's a couple of things we need to remember, some terminology that you need to know. First of all, when we look at a prism, we're going to discover that there are bases to that prism, and there's going to be two bases to any prism. And those bases are the ends of the shape. And there are also lateral sides or lateral faces to the prism. And those lateral faces are the faces that connect the bases. We've got a base here and a base here, and the lateral sides are the sides that run between those two bases. Now you need to remember this. There's going to be the same number of lateral sides as there are sides to the base. If I've got a rectangular base, it's a four-sided figure. That means I'm going to have 4 lateral faces. The number of lateral faces will equal the number of sides in the base. So how are we going to figure out what the surface area of a prism is? Well, the easiest way to do it is to deconstruct the shape. Try to figure out what are the components of the shape. What are the pieces that were put together to create the shape? For instance, in this rectangular prism, I could deconstruct it, and it'd look like that. And hopefully you'll see that I have a base and a base, and they correspond to what's underneath the box and what's up at the top there. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 lateral sides that connect the bases to each other. 1, 2, and then there's 2 hidden in the back. So I've got a total of 6 components to this rectangular prism when I deconstruct it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that makes sense because I've got 2 bases, 1 base, 2 base, and then I've got a lateral side for each of the sides of the base. And there are 4 sides to the base, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 lateral sides. 2 bases and 4 lateral sides equals 6 surfaces. And if I calculate the area of each of those 6 surfaces and add them together, I'll have the surface area of the entire shape. Well, let's try one. What do you think you call this type of prism? Yeah, that's right. It's a triangular prism because we've got a base at this end that's a triangle and a base at the other end that's a triangle. And then we've got 1, 2, 3 lateral sides. So to calculate the surface area of this triangular prism, we first need to deconstruct it. And when we do that, we see we've got 2 bases, and they're triangular bases. And the area of each would be the base times the height times 1/2. And there's 2 of them. So it's 2 times 1/2 times the height, or the base times the height. And that totals 37.8 square inches. So we know that the 2 triangles are contributing 37.8 square inches. How about the lateral sides? Well, that's a little trickier. There's 3 of them, but 2 of them are 9 by 7. That's 7 and that's 9. So I've got 2 rectangles that are 9 by 7, but the base is 9 by 6. So I've got 3 lateral sides, 2 that are 9 by 7, and 1 that's 9 by 6. So I've got a total contributed by the lateral faces of 180 square inches. Now all I have to do is add those 2 figures. Add the area contributed by the triangular bases and the area contributed by the lateral faces, and I get my total surface area, or 217.8 square inches. You try this one. Hit your pause button, pull out some paper and a pencil, do the problem, and then hit your forward key to move on to my answer. Well, if I want to get the surface area of this rectangular prism, I need to deconstruct it. And when I deconstruct it, I'm going to discover that I've got 6 sides to this shape. I've got 2 bases, a base here and a base back there. And if I've got 2 rectangular bases, or 2 4-sided bases, then I have to have 4 lateral faces to connect those bases, 1 for each side of each base. So let's deconstruct this shape. I've got 2 rectangular bases, and they're 2 millimeters by 8 millimeters. So the total area for the bases would be 2, since they're 2 bases, times the base times the height. 2 times 2 times 8 equals 32 square millimeters. Now I got 4 lateral faces, and they're different sizes. This lateral shape is 20 by 2. That's going to be 2, and that's 20. But this, the top of the shape, is going to be 8 by 20. 8 by 20. So I've got 2 surfaces that are 2 by 20 and 2 surfaces that are 8 by 20. So when I add that up, I've got 2 times 20 times 2 plus 2 times 20 times 8, and that totals to 400 square millimeters. Now I've got all my components. I've got the 2 rectangular bases plus the 4 lateral bases. If I add those together, I come up with 432 square millimeters for this shape. Now, one thing you need to remember is, in a rectangular prism, I can make any of the sides the base, as long as I'm consistent. I could make, in this problem, we made that green side the base, but I could very easily have made this yellow side and the side opposite the base, and it would have worked just as well. Now, some of you may be saying that I learned to figure out the surface area of a rectangular prism a different way. Well, that way is not wrong, at least if that way includes using this formula, that the surface area of a rectangular prism equals 2 times the base times the height, plus 2 times the base times the width, plus 2 times the height times the width. That's going to give us exactly the same answer that we get if we deconstruct it. I think deconstruction is a little bit easier because you don't have to remember a long formula, but this will work just as well. First of all, we have to label the sides. And this is kind of arbitrary. I can call this dimension the base, but I could have called that dimension the base. It doesn't matter as long as I'm consistent. In this case, I'm calling that the base, that the height, and that the width. And then I just plug in 8 millimeters every place there's a B in the formula, and I plug in 20 every place I see a W in the formula, and I do the same with the H, and then I work that problem out, and I'm going to get 432 square centimeters. Hit your pause button and determine the surface area of this shape. The first thing we're going to do is to deconstruct this rectangular prism. And I can see that I've got 2 square bases. Now again, I could call that the base and that the other base. It doesn't matter as long as I'm consistent. But it's going to be nice and easy if we've got a square base. It's 4 inches by 4 inches, and there's 2 of them. So the total area of those 2 bases is 2 times the area of each, 4 by 4, or a total of 32 square inches. Now, they're 4-sided bases, so I've got 4 lateral sides, or 4 lateral faces. And each of those lateral faces is 4 inches by 10 inches, or 4 by 10 is 40. And there's 4 of them. So 4 times 4 by 10 equals 160 square inches. Now I just have to add my 2 bases and my 4 lateral faces, and I can come up with the surface area of the entire shape, or 192 square inches. Figuring out the surface area of this shape is going to be a little bit tough. And it's not going to be tough because those dimensions, the lateral faces, are hard to figure the area of. That's pretty easy. It's going to be hard because we've got a 6-sided figure on the base, and how are we going to figure out the area of that? Well, actually, we can figure out the area of that if we deconstruct it. That 6-sided base, which looks just like this, is really a composite figure involving a rectangle and 2 triangles. Now hit the pause button, see if you can figure this one out, and then hit your forward key to move on to my answer. Well, if you didn't get this one right, don't beat yourself up, because it was pretty complicated. If you did get it right, pat yourself on the back, because this was a little tough and you did a nice job. First thing we need to do is deconstruct this shape. I've got 2 hexagonal bases. There's 2 of them. And each of those bases is composed of 2 triangles plus a rectangle. So, to figure out the size, I'd find the size of that rectangle. And they're giving me the dimensions. The base of that rectangle is 3 centimeters. The height of that rectangle is 5 centimeters. So it's 3 by 5. So I've got 2 of them, and it includes a 3 by 5 rectangle. And then I've got 2 triangles. And each of those triangles has a base of 5 and a height of 1.65. So I've got 2 of them that are, and the area of each is 1/2 the base times the height. When I do the math, all that totals up to 46.5 square centimeters. Well, that's the hard part. Now the easy part. I've got 6 sides. How do I know I got 6 lateral faces? Because the base has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 surfaces or edges or sides. So if I got 6 sides to the base, I'm going to have 6 lateral faces. So it'll be 6 times the area of each of the lateral faces. And the lateral faces are 3 centimeters by 9 centimeters. So the shape is 3 by 9. 6 times 3 by 9 equals 162 square centimeters. Now I just have to add the bases to the lateral faces, and I come up with the surface area of the entire shape, which is 208.5 square centimeters. Let's find out how well you understand the surface area of prisms. Go to www.mastermath.info and download the worksheet on surface area of a prism. After you've done the worksheet, move on to the quiz on surface areas of a prism. If you're having trouble with this concept, you can look at this video again, and I think if you watch it a couple of times, you'll understand the concept. Well, I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I hope you come back again real soon. See ya.